And as Joe Rogan pointed out just about a week ago, there are certain jurisdictions that are trying to give illegal immigrants with work permits the right to vote in municipal elections. Joe Biden.
That was struck down in New York last year, but they can do it again.
But it's currently in the courts. It's under appeal. Joe Biden is doing exactly what everyone predicted. The moment this security bill would be introduced, Republicans would notice that it was the opposite of a security bill. And when they refused to play along, the Democrats would come out and say, aha, they oppose their own security bill.
When in reality, that bill was playing politics with the border, trying to call it a border bill, but giving 70% of the money goes to Ukraine and Israel. It's not a border bill. It's an Israel-Ukraine war bill that they called a border bill. That's playing politics with the thing. He said, don't play politics with the border. They just did it.
It's a Ukraine-Israel bill.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for topping that off.
That's like the, what was it called? The Inflation Reduction Act. And I was just reading today in Variety, it turns out that the Inflation Reduction Act made it possible for Travis Kelce to produce his first Hollywood film with federal credits from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, good for him.
Yay. It raised taxes on pretty much everybody, but, Travis Kelce gets to produce a film.
The reason this bill was even structured in the way it was in the first place, meaning the bill that was abandoned last week, that included the immigration component, was because in September or October of last year, Republicans in the House kept saying, and some in the Senate kept saying, that although we might support in principle sending additional funds to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, we're prioritizing the border and immigration policy above all else. And so that is a required element of any bill that we would vote for. So it was Biden was proposing that as an accommodation to Republican complaints.
No.
And then the Senate Republicans designated James Lankford, who is one of the more conservative members of the caucus, or was seen as one before last week, who came up with a bill that, if you compare it to previous attempts to pass comprehensive immigration reform, and I'm kind of neutral on that anyway, like I don't care one way or the other that much, but like in 2013 and 2007, when there were these bipartisan attempts to do immigration reform, they included a lot more liberal or democratic priorities, including quote unquote pathways to citizenship. This included none of that. It was strictly border enforcement. So Biden ironically was willing. Biden was willing to
definitely not accurate.
Biden was willing to totally spit in the face of the more hardline progressive immigration activists within the coalition and just go along with almost entirely Republican priorities. And Republicans chose to nuke the bill.
Did you read the bill?
Yeah, I did.
How could you possibly call it anything other than progressive? 8,500 non-citizens allowed in per day. CBP getting, in certain circumstances, the right to adjudicate asylum claims outside of the courts. The granting of work permits. The problem right now that Democrat voters in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and other major Democrat cities are complaining about is a massive influx of non-citizens sleeping in our airports, in our schools. So when they say it's a security bill that facilitates a million plus per year, that's not what Republicans are complaining about. That is Democrat gift giving. That is the only outcome of that proposal was that it would be set that the bill is dead on arrival. And then Democrats get to come out and say the security bill was rejected by Republicans.
Well, what the lead Senate negotiator, James Lankford, who I've actually spoken to in the past about Ukraine policy and other stuff, seems like a relatively normal conservative. I'm not saying, I doubt he would be doing the bidding of the Democrats just in some mischievous or nefarious way. Seemed like he was pretty sincere in what he was trying to negotiate, although I stand open to be corrected on that. And he was saying that what it would have changed, and again, I don't really frankly care that much way or another about immigration policy. It's something I'm kind of agnostic on, for better or worse. But he was saying that the status quo now is that as many as like 6 or 7 or 8,000 per day migrants approach the border. And this would be creating a new authority where if it reaches that number on any given day or over the span of a week, then asylum claims aren't even being processed anymore at the border. So he said that within the past 6 months, there would have been only 3 or 4 days where the inflow would have been low enough that they would even be processing asylum claims in the first place. They were saying that this was going to create authority that Trump had sought, that Congress hadn't even enacted, that would have given him the ability to actually shut down the processing of asylum claims, which is otherwise mandated by law.
And redirect them to ports of entry for an additional 3,500.